For 500 days, people walked past the old black cane Corso in that shelter and never stopped. He was 10 years old, 150 pounds, with a gray muzzle and tired eyes, and everyone who passed his kennel saw the same thing: too old, too big, too much. Not worth the years he had left, which were not many. He'd been on the list to be put down twice already, and twice the shelter had quietly given him a little more time. And now that time had nearly run out. Then one afternoon, a young woman who had stopped believing in much of anything walked down that row of kennels. And when she reached the last one, she did not keep walking. She sat down on the cold concrete floor in front of his cage. And what those two broken souls did for each other over the next year is the reason both of them are still here today. Grace Whitfield was 32 years old, and 4 months earlier, she'd lost her father, the man who raised her alone, the person who had been her whole family. Since the funeral, she had more or less stopped living. She went to work, she came home, she sat in a silent house, and she let the phone ring. Her friends worried, her aunt begged her to get out, to see people, to do anything. Grace did not have the energy to explain that when the one person who was your entire world is gone, the world does not feel like it wants you in it anymore. It was her aunt who finally dragged her to the county shelter, not to adopt, just to walk the dogs for an afternoon, just to get her out of the house. Grace almost did not go inside, but she did, and that is where she met Angus. Angus was a 10-year-old cane Corso, 150 pounds of black fur going gray around the face, and he had been surrendered to the shelter 500 days earlier, when his owner, an 84-year-old man named Harold, had passed away. Harold had raised Angus from a puppy. For 9 years, that dog had slept at the foot of an old man's bed. And then one morning, Harold did not wake up, and Angus was loaded into a shelter van, and no one ever came for him again. Nobody wanted a 10-year-old dog that size. Families wanted puppies. People who saw a 150-pound cane Corso saw something to be afraid of, not something to love. And so for 500 days, that old dog sat in the back of his kennel and watched hundreds of people walk past without slowing down, the same way the world had walked past Grace since the day of the funeral. When Grace reached his cage, Angus did not bark or jump. He rose slowly, stiff in his back legs, walked to the front of the kennel and pressed his big gray head against the bars, right up against her. And Grace, who had not really cried since the funeral, who had held it all in for 4 months, sat down on that floor and finally let go, with an old dog's head resting against her shoulder the entire time. The shelter worker told her the hard truth. He is a wonderful dog, but he's 10, he has arthritis, his vet bills will not be small, and dogs his size do not always have many years left. Most people are not looking to adopt heartbreak. Grace looked at Angus. Angus looked at Grace, and she understood in that moment that they were the same. Two souls the world had decided were past their best days, sitting on a shelter floor, recognizing something in each other that nobody else had bothered to see. She signed the papers that afternoon. I know you are still watching but have not subscribed yet, and after a dog like Angus, that stings a little. Tap subscribe. Everyone had given up on this one, and subscribing is how the world finds out he was worth saving. Everyone in her life thought grief had made her reckless. Her aunt asked if she was sure she wanted to take on a sick old dog when she was barely holding herself together. But something had already shifted. For the first time in 4 months, Grace had a reason to go home. The first weeks were an education. Angus needed a ramp to get onto the couch, and even then, he sometimes needed a boost from behind. He could not manage long walks anymore, so their walks became slow shuffles to the end of the street and back, the old dog in no hurry at all. And somewhere in those slow mornings, giving an old dog his pills and helping him up the porch steps, Grace started coming back to life. She had to get up now because Angus needed his breakfast. She had to come straight home because Angus was waiting. She started talking again, first to the dog, then to the neighbors. The silent house was not silent anymore. It had the sound of an old dog snoring, and it turned out that was the sound she had been missing. For 9 years, Angus had belonged to one old man, and now at 10, he was learning what a second home felt like. Grace bought him an orthopedic bed and a pill organizer with 14 little compartments, and she learned to hide his 2 heart pills in a spoonful of peanut butter. A 150-pound dog, it turned out, will happily climb into a twin bed and leave you about 8 inches of it. Their slow walks never went more than 200 yards, and Grace would not have traded a single one of them. By 6 months in, Grace barely recognized the person she had been the winter before. She laughed again, she answered the phone, she took Angus on slow car rides with the windows down, and swore that dog smiled the whole way. Her aunt, who had worried she was taking on too much, admitted she had never seen Grace so much like herself, not since before her father got sick. Angus himself was thriving too. He had put on 8 pounds of healthy weight, and the shine had come back into his black coat. The shelter had listed his age as 10, but the vet guessed he was closer to 11, which made every good day feel borrowed and precious. Grace's aunt, who had called the whole thing a mistake, drove 3 hours one weekend just to meet the old dog who had brought her niece back to life. What none of them fully understood was that Angus had not just given Grace something to care for, he had given her a reason to stay on the mornings when staying felt like too much. She had rescued him from that shelter with 500 days behind him, but quietly, without either of them ever saying it, he had rescued her right back. And then, on a warm night in September, almost exactly a year after she brought him home, everything nearly came apart. Grace was on the couch with Angus when she noticed his breathing had changed, fast and shallow and wrong. He tried to stand and his back legs buckled. His gums, when she checked them, had gone pale. The same dog everyone had walked past for 500 days. The same dog the shelter had twice run out of time to save. The same old cane Corso that nobody in the world had believed was worth a single vet bill was now looking up at Grace with frightened eyes. And she did not hesitate for even a second. She got all 150 pounds of him into her car, and she drove to the emergency animal hospital at 2 in the morning like her own life depended on it. Because in every way that mattered, it did. She had learned that with a heart like his, minutes mattered. The drive to the emergency hospital was 15 minutes, and Grace made it in 9, running 2 empty red lights with 150 pounds of frightened dog in the back seat. She had not driven like that since the night she raced to a very different hospital for her father, and the awful echo of it nearly took her breath away. The veterinarian on call was honest with her, the way people are honest at 2 a.m. His heart was failing. He was old. A dog his age, in his condition, might not make it through the night. And even if he did, she should prepare herself. Grace heard all of it, and then she asked to stay with him. She sat on the floor of that hospital next to Angus for the rest of the night, her hand on his chest, and she talked to him the way he had listened to her for a year. She told him it was not his time. She told him she was not ready, that she had only just gotten him, that after everyone in the world had walked away from him, she never would. The waiting room clock read 2:47 a.m. when the vet came out the first time, and Angus was hooked to an IV and a monitor, and Grace stayed pressed to the bars of his cage where he could feel her hand for the next 3 hours. She told him to fight, and that old dog, who by every medical expectation should not have lasted until morning, fought. By dawn, his breathing had steadied. By the next afternoon, he was stable enough to come home. Angus spent 3 more days in that hospital, and Grace visited every 6 hours. When she finally brought him home on the 4th day, the bill was just over $4,000, and she paid it without hesitation, because there is no price on the thing that gives you your life back. The veterinarian, a woman who had worked emergencies for 18 years, said she did not fully understand it. She said sometimes an animal simply decides he is not finished, and that she had rarely seen a dog hold on the way that one had. Grace knew exactly why he held on. He was not ready to leave her, the same way she had not been ready to leave the world once he came into it. Angus got better. The vet adjusted his heart medication, and Grace built her whole life around that old dog, and they were given more time. Precious, unhurried, ordinary time. Today, Angus is 12 years old, which for a cane Corso is a small miracle all on its own. His muzzle is almost fully white now. He still needs his ramp and his pills and a boost onto the couch, and every single morning, he is the reason Grace opens her eyes and gets up, exactly as he has been since the day she found him. The neighbors who once eyed the big black dog nervously now save him treats, and the hundreds of people who walked past his kennel for 500 days will never know that the old dog they decided was not worth the trouble spent his final years quietly saving a grieving woman's life. A dog is never too old to matter. A soul is never too worn down to be worth saving. Sometimes the one everybody else has given up on is the exact one who will give you a reason to keep going. Grace walked into that shelter with nothing left, and she walked out with a 10-year-old dog nobody wanted. Looking back now, she knows the truth. She did not rescue Angus. They rescued each other. So let me ask you honestly, would you have taken home a sick 10-year-old dog that everyone else walked past? Or would you have kept walking too? Tell me in the comments. And if an old dog ever changed your life, say their name below so the world remembers what these dogs are really worth.